out fighting for is not enough. The quote that he used is like opening the door for people to enter into a burning house. Like, okay, you unlock the door, but the house is burning. You know, the empire is crumbling. So like, why let people into this? Let's embark on something better. And some people conjecture that that's actually why he was assassinated, because it's fine to fight for integration. But like, now you're talking about the evils of capitalism, militarism, war. Now you're going too far. So today I think about, well, had the world not experienced the shock of King's assassination, maybe people wouldn't be so timid to fight back, because he was an important leader. He wasn't it, but he was a very important leader. And when he was assassinated, I think it sent a message to people about what could happen to you when you fight back.
That part. What was even your question?
Like, what does King have to do with today and what we're doing?
When I think of King, I can, and we say assassination. I can only relate it to, you say Nipsey Hussle. We think about like people who radical. Nipsey talked about being radical, and King, going back to the community. I find it funny for me. It's like I didn't realize as a kid or even growing up, just recently realizing how many people King had with him in the streets. Like, that is crazy for me to even like grasp that, and to think about these two individuals who in their communities and for other communities around the world wanted to create that radical with inside individuals, and for people to see that, like, okay, there are other options outside of whatever you may have grown up with, in a sense. Or when I say grow up, I say okay, Nipsey, it may have been poverty. For King, it may have been poverty as well. But when we talk about this, gang violence, because gang violence is not even just gang violence is the core to a lot of the issues, whether it's like physical violence or like emotional. It's all embedded inside of the system. Political violence, like, it's embedded in the system so much that it has become so normalized that there is a requirement of like this social change that many people, like the activists that we mentioned, have like brought forth, and I'm excited about continuing to learn on a daily basis. But like, what this clinic and what these workshops can do for myself, but for the whole community, right. You know, or for the people who are tag on to it.
I think King was about community, and he knew even for himself that he was responsible for all of his community members. And I think even as activists and advocates, we've gotten away from that. We don't realize that we are 100% accountable for each other, for their housing, for their lights, for their food, for anything that they need. And I think that this clinic will help us realize that even as advocates, this is what we need to advocate for. And, you know, in King's day, equality was radical. It was not normalized. And so, you know, that's what we have to continue to fight for, because it still is radical, even though we act progressive about it. You know, people are not treated equally. And every time that we turn our head and bow our eyes to watching a person in front of us being treated that way, because it's not you, you're complicit. And so we need to be aware of our complicity and how we change that and prevent that, and be responsible for our community members in every way. We have to learn, you know, as he chose to educate himself in what he can do to help others, you know. I feel responsible for every houseless person in my community and every person that needs any type of help, whether I need the same help or not. I'm responsible for helping them first, you know, and once we all charge ourselves with that as a mission, our community will change instantly.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, we gotta go in a circle.
No,
Oh, okay. Just because it's like closing, because I just want to respect your time.
Oh, that's
like
okay.
y'all, because like we're here.
I mean,
so
you were
like,
all saying
yeah,
it
like,
also.
yeah, we're
beautifully.
here.
How
We're
do
here
you
all
even
day
add
long.
on to what you guys are saying?
Okay. But she said you can, so take it back.
I lost it.
Oh shit!
It'll come back.
Yeah.
I was thinking similar to what you were about, with King and the poor people's movement and what, like, really becoming much more radical, right, about it towards the end of his life and his career, and thinking about the vulnerability of so many tenants in our community, and how much we know, the data out there is just so heartbreaking and depressing around disparities, health disparities, income disparities, and how it's all linked to housing, right? And I just think about a lot of my clients, especially like my newer Portland clients, my refugee clients, who are literally the most vulnerable, who are living in the worst housing possible, and landlords know that, they're not going to do anything about it because they have nowhere else to go, and they don't know. They may not know what their rights are. They may not. They're afraid to enforce those rights. And thinking about folks with criminal histories, or folks that are in their housing, knowing that it took so much work and so much struggle to find that housing, get in that housing. They had to probably make various requests to get into housing, and have landlords overlook aspects of their rental history or criminal history or credit history that landlords under our current laws can consider, right? And so knowing that they are trapped in that situation because they don't have another option. And it's just the I don't even know where I'm going with all this.
No,
But we still fight like King.
I mean, there's just like,
it's like it's the
all
same
connected,
time.
right? It's all connected.
The
so,
same time.
There's just so much work to do, and I think we can enforce the laws we have, and that's my role as a lawyer. But like, the laws are the laws, and they don't, we can do the best we can with them, but there is like so much other work to be done that is about new laws, doing things outside the laws, that really is the meaningful change. So.
How do I even add on to anything you guys are saying? I think I was thinking about a lot of what you were saying, and just, building up our community and helping those in need. And, you talked about like equality and how we want to be treated equally. But for me, my mind, when I think about that kind of thing, is like, people who are immigrants and people who are people of color aren't treated equally, right? We know that they're treated less than. And so I'm like, for me on a personal level, I try to give more, of myself to particularly that community. And so I think for me, it was when I came to work for Legal Aid and to be in this position, I was excited about coming in as a multicultural person, as a person who could reach out to other communities and kind of relate, maybe not on the same exact ground, but sort of kind of like having the same barriers and being able to be like, hey, yo, like, this is who I am. This is, I can listen. I may not be able to help you, but I want to listen to you. And I want to bring that back to my office. And I wanted to be that face where it's like, you can trust me, you can come to me. Like, I want to build up this community. I want to build these relationships. And so, just reflecting on that kind of thing.
For me, my only reflection in regards of the assassination of Dr. King, since I knew about him, was how people in this country kill such a great leader. That, to my eyes, was one of them, right? So if they did that to him, what are they going to do to a foreigner who has, less privilege and the language and, looks different and all that? So to me, what has always been something to keep in mind, if you kill your own people, of course you're gonna, see a target in any other person that doesn't look like you. So that's a problem in this country, right? Which I love and respect because, I became a U.S. citizen. Also, I have a dual citizenship, but I am a Mexican woman, and I have always that in my mind, my background is a little bit different. So I'm always comparing. And I admire the work that Dr. King did, and it was very valuable to the history of this country. But especially, I saw the value of the Black community, not the value, but the need of the Black community in having such a strong advocate who was a very spiritual man, you know, and that's something that I had that conversation with Teresa many times. You know, a good leader has to have very strong spirituality, you know, a belief, a faith, something, you know. If you don't have that type of approach to life, you know, to love something, you know, or praise, you know, a major force, then you are a very materialistic person, you know. And I admire the work, you know, he did, his personality, because he always carried his faith, but he was truthful, right? And that made him very powerful. So a good leader has to, in my own personal, you know, belief, has to have a very strong spirituality, you know, and faith, and because that keeps the balance, you know, for at least for me, right? So knowing that every year, you know, we remember the work that he did the day he was assassinated, and that means that we have to continue his legacy, right? And his work, you know, because his work is not done. So it's up to us, you know, to continue, you know, remembering and taking action into his legacy.